panel discussion that's about to take place is the Comedic Effect, memes, satire, and collaborative possibilities in content creation.
Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm sure they had other more important labs and sessions that they could have attended, and they picked the most boring people to run this one. On my far right, that's Njugush. I didn't even, he doesn't even sound like a Timothy, right? Just sounds like a Njugush. Do you have friends who call you like maybe Tim, Timo?
Only people who I owe money, and people who know me from when I was born. But I'm Jugush. Yeah. I find that easier to say. Yeah. But born Timothy Kimani Ndegwa.
Paul.
Timothy born.
Born. Oh, I had Paul. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have Esther Lerato Kazungu, who's a content creator and a last-born. We just found out she's a last-born. So it explains a lot of her content. Yeah.
Hi.
I just say good evening, viewers.
Good evening, viewers.
Yeah. And then we have Mr. Gado himself, who's literally the king of memes. From the time we were born. Yani, he's been doing memes every day, even before memes became a thing. Yeah.
I'm Jamboni.
Jamboni. All right, so before we start, can I just ask you guys, you remember the hashtag we're using? Africa Media Festival, Reimagine Media. Could you probably, using those hashtags, when you get the time, could you probably tell us what's your favorite meme or content that you've come across recently? Yeah? Is that okay? Also for us who are here, please, if you find us boring and you feel like you're going to sleep, please laugh so that we know that, we need to changamsha you a bit, yeah? Yeah, so if you feel you're dozing, ha ha, then we'll know like we are doing a bad job. That's okay? I'll ask the panel. Of course, we'll start with Esther. When did you first think you were a comedian or a content creator? Like, what was the first thing you did, and how much did it bomb?
Wow, wow. Okay, so I have never considered myself funny, but thanks guys for laughing, because I feel like it's just easier to not consider myself funny, and then if you guys laugh, cool. But I started creating content in 2016. My first video was I was depicting how when girls are walking past a group of men, it's so weird, like you just feel weird inside. So you look at anything else, like you're just trying to find anything else so that you can ignore the catcalling. And people laughed, so they enabled me, and here I am today. Yeah.
Mr. Gado, first piece of content you created that went public, or should I say went viral? Because newspaper then was viral.
That's quite a long time ago. I think probably I was in Form 1. So, in fact, I think I'm the oldest here, but it's quite pleasing to see my former editors here, Catherine, Sarah. So I feel younger, and it feels great. I started working with the Daily Nation in 1992. That's quite a while ago, somehow I skipped my studying architecture and decided to become an editorial cartoonist. I speak to schools and students, and that's something that I advise they should never try to do, ever. But I've also gone ahead to form a company, Buni Media. We create content, and I've been privileged to work with lots of content creators. I think I know we are going to talk about collaborations, but I've been lucky enough to work with lots of artists, writers, and create wonderful projects, and I continue to do that. And so a lot of work that I have created that has come to pass. I've had quite very little, so to speak, apart from the editorial drawings that I've done over the years. Yeah.
Anyone here who was born after 1992? Let's just see by a show of hands, anyone born? Imagine, and he was already viral. When you left architecture to do editorial cartoons, how proud were your parents?
Well, you don't want to know about it. It didn't go well. It didn't end well. I did promise them that I'll go back to finish my course, which I didn't. But I went ahead and I studied animation and filmmaking, so it was a little bit of a give back.
Yeah.
But I still tell them that my mom passed on, just last year. So, but I hope to keep my promise. Yeah.
All the best. Njugush, what did you have to give up to make us laugh?
My dignity. So I think in terms of first content I made viral, I think it goes back to where I started. I did journalism. We all had this road already set. So at first I wanted to be a pilot, and then I realized there's something wrong with my grades. So
now you're an influencer.
Sorry?
So now you're an influencer.
Not really. So I did journalism, Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, as I said earlier. Then, we are two of us in the room. So after that, I was sure I was going for TV and radio. In my mind, I was this Larry Madowo kind of guy, a big time news anchor. And then towards the end, I got a call from a guy called Abel Mutua. He used to be a producer then on a TV station, one of our TV stations. He called me on a show called Hapakule News. So here I'm doing journalism, and I hear there is a show called Hapakule News. What I didn't know is that Hapakule News was not a news show. It was a news parody show. So it was basically a comedy show. So I showed up in my tie, and that's where I lost my tangent. So I went into doing comedy until I left TV 3 years later, and I started now digital, whatever I do on digital. I did one video, it went viral. It was in Swahili. Hata sijasikia vibaya. It was a guy who was proposing. For people who don't understand Swahili, a guy who was proposing, and then the lady, and I think the video originated from South Africa. And then the lady left the guy kneeling, and she went. So it's the process of waking up, and I said, I didn't feel a thing, which really I felt a thing. So that's how it's been.
All right. Guys, if you have any questions, you can just note them down in maybe a few minutes. We'll take 1 or 2 questions before we proceed. But do you guys think the work you do helps shape public opinion? And now with the, it's not even the advent, the internet is something else. And what you do you think it has a role? Does it play any role in shaping public opinion? And was that the thing you hoped it will do, or you're just here for the laughs and free mimosas? Esther? Last one?
So,
Sorry.
When I started out, I really did not see myself becoming a civic educator. I started, my first viral piece of content was the South African Parliament, the recreation of the South African Parliament. And how I started putting out civic education videos was when I joined, I worked at a media house for some time. And before that, I was not really interested in whatever is happening, honestly, in the world. I wanted to, I thought I will become an entertainment, presenter. At Tuendelee Huko, we focus on the good times and not the news. But so after clearing, I was called to Radio Africa, and now I started paying attention to what is actually happening in the country, and it was pissing me off. It was pissing me off. And even as I shared my thoughts on my stories, it wasn't really I'm sharing, and I know that I'm sharing so that we can discuss this. I just started sharing, and people were also engaging, and then it became a thing. I find a topic, I put it out on my stories, and we start discussing. And I didn't know how many young people are really interested and very keen on what's happening in the country. And I feel like even with my content, I have now made it easier for them to actually speak up. Yeah, I've made it easier for young people to participate in these topics.
Number one, I think satire should entertain, but also educate. And but also satire does not operate in a vacuum. And I think sometimes we have to be careful to give satire a huge responsibility. It helps shape public opinion to an extent, but also satire is part and parcel of the bigger picture. And so I can rant here and say, yes, I did that cartoon, but all the cartoons I did is also because I was given a platform, and the Daily Nation defended me whenever there is trouble. That as an editorial cartoonist, the number one issue that, a cartoon can say this, then that gives voice also to the rest. So that is also, it should be seen from that context and not in its own right. And so even today, I think when people see Njigush very much able to talk about very sensitive stuff, then that gives the wider society the voice to speak. Again, satire has that ability to speak about subjects that probably, they cannot be written. Religious issues, taboo subjects, LGBTQ issues. So it operates in that layer where you can also discuss wider issue. You can talk about issues that are sensitive. You can push the envelope. And I think that to that extent, yes, satire plays a role in shaping the opinion of the public and giving the larger public the voice. And also because satire speaks truth to power. It points out that the emperor is naked, then that makes it easier. It gives, the voice. I think the bigger danger is that, which I also worry, is that have we become numb? We can always, shout and shout, but what is happening? And to what effect is satire? So it's a much broader question, but I'm always a little bit careful with that and say, and also the impact has to be long term, and it's not that one whereby you look at actually, specifically on one particular artist or on one particular group of artists.
Right. Njigush, have you had instances where your content has gotten you into trouble, as it were? Because he says, he had the covering of a Nation Media Group. Is there covering for independent content creators who cannot run and lock themselves inside Nation Center? Have you had instances where you got that into trouble? And I guess I'm going to ask everyone, you know, for your content?
Right. One about opinion shaping. I think it's a thin line because because what we are able to do, what personally I'm able to do, what Gado is able to do, what Esther is able to do, is to be able to use what we have in a light manner. Because when you look at a cartoon, and I'm so honored to be seated here with Gado, he's the best to ever do it. It's very...
The goat.
Yeah, he's the goat. It's just a cartoon. But then you look at it, and then there's something that gets into you, say, what? Because it's whatever you're thinking, but he said it in whatever manner. So it's very powerful. And so it's comedy. When I'm talking about stuff, it's for me, I think it's the easiest content to make, because 50% the work has already been done in this script. So the politician, like for example, for those of you who are visiting Kenya, we are praying for rain. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. However, we are not doing what is supposed to be done in preparation for one, rain. Two, the scientists, who we pay a lot of money, have said we're going to have very short rains. We're expecting long rains in the prayers, but the scientists have said we are going to have short rains. So we are at a fix as a people. So what we do, I'll use comedy, you laugh, and then we'll get the conversation going. But my question is, as Gado has said, to what degree does it change? Because we talk about choosing the right leaders, let's say for example, then the same people, they'll tell you, no, we are going this way. This is the one we want. And then when things go south, they come to you, celebrities are not talking, you have platforms, you're not talking. You're like, we talked, and then you did whatever you wanted. So it's a degree, yes, it's a conversation starter, which is very important, because some years back we couldn't have this. I think it's only Gado who was getting away with that. And in Kenya we had guys called Ridiculous. They always, somehow, though for them it was not really hard punching because of the times. About getting into trouble, fortunately or unfortunately, I get into trouble more with religion. Like for example, I've just talked about rain. So you'll expect someone says, but you know, God does. But even God doesn't like foolish people. But that's not my point. But that's not my point. My point is, yes, you get that. From politicians, it's very interesting. It's quite interesting because the only political message I've ever got is Mheshimiwa, certain politician is asking you speak more of him, and they actually gave me content. Say he has not been able to do. So I'm like, I wish I was recording that phone call, could have made a very good video. But in terms of getting me into trouble now is where now money comes in. Because when we do what we do, it takes money to shoot and to do whatever you need to do. You have people you need to pay. But where do you get your money? So for us, we get money from advertisers. We get money from platforms we've built. So the biggest revenue, and I'm glad it's something we've been talking about the whole conference, is where we get our money. He who pays the piper calls the tune. Kitu kama hiyo. So now the piper is now the piper is paid. So I got a contract from a client after I did a lot of they call them political videos, which are not political videos. When I did a lot of satire, the client for the first time gave me a very huge contract, and they said there was a clause saying avoid politics. And then I was like, oh, I see where you're coming from. So I told the agency, tell the client I'm not signing because of this line. But it's not a lot, I'm saying, tell them. So I explained to the client, if you feel me talking about current affairs, things that are happening, it's going to be bad for business, then what happens when you don't have, when these people are not able to buy your products because of the state of economy, who are you going to sell to? So they're like, okay, let's remove that clause and then we continue. So, well, problemish, and also I know of instances where I've been denied jobs because of that, which is fine. No, it's not really fine, but but you get the point.
Esther, are you
I don't. No, I don't think I've gotten into trouble. The only video that I think would have gotten me into trouble is the Irungu Kangata one, which was doctored, and yeah, it was. It was. So I'm just glad I caught wind of that in good time to add a clause that this is a doctored video, and so that I'm not out here spreading misinformation. But that's the only, I don't think if somebody is denying my bag, I don't know. Labda wamei-deny uko haijanifikia because of my political content. I don't think I have ever gotten into trouble. Yeah.
Gado, has trouble come to you?
I think also in satire is that it's given. If you do satire and you don't get into trouble, then you're doing something wrong, and you probably should get out of it. I think yesterday's conference, my former editor Charles pointed out that you have to be ready to cause trouble, because it's a very nature of satire is to speak the unspoken. So at some point you are going to piss off people, and you are going to cause trouble. So it is something that you are going to encounter if you are doing satire. Now, of course, it's a little bit tricky these days with new forms of media and social media. And Njugosha has alluded to that it is also a challenge, because, you know, how do you create content and work with clients? And I think I was also, Esther mentioned that earlier when we were discussing this, that it's a challenge. And I think it's a challenge that the new generation of satirists and artists and memes, have to fight. Because one of the things, I think there are a lot of young people here who actually were born after 92. So a lot of gains that actually were fought for, they are going to be lost. People died in this country defending what you're enjoying. So it is always tricky, and it's always, I personally always learn my craft. And so it's challenging, but we have to accept that, yes, satire is a confrontational art, and at some point you are going to piss off government officials, and that's fine. I think that has to be understood. It is not about right or wrong, it's about confronting a problem. It's about provoking issues, it's about discussion. And it is challenging, I will say that again and again, but satire provokes, satire has to inflict pain. It has to. And that has to be defended, especially in the world where we are living. We have corporate crooks, including Googles and others. They have to be questioned. We have to challenge that. And because that space, if you are not careful, then you will actually give away a lot of your democratic rights, your ability to defend democracy, and so forth and so forth. So for young content creators, you should not be afraid when you offend. It is very okay.
With, right now everyone is a content creator. Well, mostly people who have iPhones and Samsungs. I don't know about Oppo and Infinix and Redmi, on a lighter note, yeah. But, even access to content creation tools is, I can walk downtown and buy a DSLR camera. So with the growth of these pockets of content creators, do you think there's an opportunity for content creators, independent content creators, to work with traditional media? I know we keep saying, the newspaper is dying, but it is still here with us. And for the work that Gado and the people in your line do, that short space will always be there. If you're not there, somebody else will fill it up. But for the rest of us, do you think there's an opportunity for us, with our satire and comedic content, to work with traditional media? And what ways are we seeing in that space? Njugush?
Oh, I thought you were going to start there. Yes and no. Yes, because as we are speaking here, when we talk about satire, I think we've gone round in terms of, we've covered satire. Yesterday we covered what we called A to Z of journalism, the explanatory journalism. We have the human interest, we have everything. So if everybody did whatever they are doing, we invoke emotions, and then we do some human stories of a woman who is in deep Turkana. They cannot do anything else apart from look for water for the whole day. So we connect these problems into choosing the right people in, then problem is solved. So everyone is working independent, because when I get into, let's say for example, a media house, I'll have to go with the policies. There's some things I can say in terms of the editorial policy of a particular media house that cannot fly there. But I can be able to say from a safe space. I can be able to say what I want to say from where I am without really caring about editorial policy. Yeah? So that's a no, without really caring about editorial policy, and things happen. But yes, we can work together in the sense that, as we are saying, times are changing. Right now, I can be able to read a newspaper on my phone, and so on and so forth. So when we infuse the two of them, because you find someone, it's like when you have a newspaper and you're watching the TV at the same time, because there's something that is in here, and also at the same time there's something on the telly. So I think from where we stand, yes, there's a little of panel beating, because what happens is I take a camera, I go, and this is, I'm sorry to say again, when it comes to content creation, I think we are going for controversial. Everybody picks a camera, and if you look at our YouTube, we are just looking for scandals. Yeah, this is what this said after that scandal. Get 200,000 views. Then myself, I go deep in Turkana to do a human interest story, but I get 4,000 views. And I've really tortured people to watch, like in these particular settings. Everyone go to that. Well, so I'm saying panel beating in the sense of the ethic. We also have the ethics that we need to take care of. So panel beating in the sense that, because I cannot be green and go to work in mainstream, because they've gone to school for that, they've gone a long journey for that. I just picked a camera and I expect to be working together. Yes, it's possible. That's why I said it's a yes or no answer, because there are some lessons I need to be taught. Like for example, in media, I think they taught us about kids. If you're below 18, you don't show the faces, you blur. What are we doing? You just record a kid being mistreated and the video goes viral. So again, that might have to be blurred when it goes to mainstream, but again, it's a thin line. But yeah.
Any thoughts, Mr. Gadu?
You're liking gender parity here. I thought Esther, that's a hard question. She should. I think. Yes, I totally agree that the way we consume news media is changing. This has been widely discussed, and therefore we have to be innovative in terms of how do we produce this content. Producing content is, rather, let me put it this way, producing good content is difficult. It's not easy. Producing short, good content is even more difficult. Now, it's easy, as Njigush said, to pick a camera and just, that's why you have all manners of content today. And so we are saturated with all this content, and especially in an environment where our attention span is actually getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So, yes, the very idea of producing a newspaper, for example, is very collaborative. There is no doubt about it. So there is a need to innovate, especially using new medias, to see how can we collaborate and how can the content creators can be part and parcel of new media, of producing this good content. There's no doubt about it. As a media practitioner, I've produced, created shows like XYZ, TMI, but I've worked with writers, I've worked with animators. I'm a classical animator by trade, by the way. I've worked with writers, animators, voice talents. It is hard to produce good content. And so yes, there is a challenge of funding and finance. But I think we can find innovative ways to work towards that. The challenge is everybody today is a content creator. So how do you discern and actually try to get the right people? But the right people are there. I mean, I've worked with a lot of them. I mean, what Esther is doing is difficult. And so why had she distinguished herself? That shows you that this is somebody who actually knows what she's doing. So it's upon media houses, traditional media houses, and new media, to find ways to collaborate, and without actually, or rather at the same time, looking at the ethics that are needed to produce good content. It's pretty normal these days. You go to a place, and people are just taking, for example, with their phones, and they're recording people. That is not, and they post this thing. So a lot is happening today, but also what are and these things have repercussions. So what are the ethics in what we do? I would like to think, and I work with lots of young artists in producing content. There is also an opportunity to stick to, it's a lot of work to ethics. To produce good content, but it needs work. You need to develop these talents. They are talents. Now, there are also other people who actually, out of their own, they are one-man show, and they can do that. And we don't want to exclude that. They are there, and they should continue to do that. But I think collaboration, these kind of collaborations, for me, they are they're most profitable. I, for one, for example, just to give you an example, I mean, and I think that continues. I mean, I got an idea, when I got an idea about the XYZ many years ago, I literally went to artists and I say, including positions that I thought I could do, but there is no way you're going to create good 30 minutes comedy show by yourself or by 2 people or 3 people. So you need good people. So it goes without saying that you need collaborations. And I think traditional media houses have to understand that. They have to know that, okay, today, for example, I always find it quite, and I will say this, I know I have colleagues here. I always find media houses, they basically also produce content within there. Your job is to create, to broadcast news and to go to creating productions. It's a whole new idea. It's a whole new thing. But you find that, so they do these things, and in the end, you find that whatever is produced is actually substandard. It's not good enough. Television stations can work with production houses to get good content. Now, they always give an excuse of funding. No. The bigger problem is the thinking. Television, and of course they have their own politics in there. You find the production manager also has his production gig. He gives to the television. So we have to be innovative. You have to be innovative if actually we want to grow and if we want actually to create good content. And that, unfortunately, has not happened. That has not happened. And that's why also we are also flooded by also, quite a lot of foreign content. And to add to that is that we also have to train the young generation. We have to train. We have broadcasters, media organizations, they have to invest in young people.
I feel like like we have already been collaborating indirectly. Because, for example, if I'm making a video that is very specific, it has specific information, I'm not making up this information. I go to, like, you know, media houses. Oh, okay. I go to, like, their websites, their digital websites, to research more, a bit more, and be sure of my facts. So I feel like that's already collaborating. Another way we can collaborate is, now you see these settings, they should not only be for media people, because now, as you said, everyone is a reporter, everyone is a journalist nowadays, but they don't have the training. Yesterday, we spoke of how these guys who have podcasts and, you know, platforms don't know about, like, media ethics. So these settings should also, like, we should also invite content creators, like, or we should even just, like, set out specific functions, similar functions, for that only, so that we just, it's a continuous process of training people, everyone who's coming up, and that way, even, like, we are helping each other. The media space is helping each other in the long run, and we are working together. And even I feel like media houses getting on TikTok is also them learning from us. So we are collaborating in that way indirectly as well. And we can train you guys. We don't mind. It's okay. A small fee. I'm kidding. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Anyone who's not on TikTok, can I just see by a show of hand who's not on TikTok? What's your NSSF number? All right. I'll ask one more question, and then we can take questions. You know, so there's risk from government, and then there's risk or barriers with media houses. Are there risks, especially in this day and age of cancel culture, risks from the audiences? Because, you know, today they're like, that's funny. Tomorrow they're like, crucify him, crucify him. Yeah? Are there risks? And what are the risks as content creators, as people who do these things? What are the pitfalls that we probably need to look out for? Because I guess also it's livelihood for the rest of us. You know, you don't make us laugh on taxpayers' money. Yeah.
I think the riskier, the prettier. You said, you used a very good word, that is crucify. I think if they didn't crucify Jesus, maybe we wouldn't be talking, and we would be going to Easter every year if they didn't crucify him. So I think it was for a good cause. So
you mean the holiday was? What is he saying?
No, I'm saying if I get crucified, I think people will talk, or rather whatever I do has a lifespan, so to speak, quote unquote. The reason I'm saying this is because as long as you're doing what you're doing, for me, bad publicity, because you'd wish for everyone to say good things about you, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. It only happens when you die. So before then I'd be happy to put out content, because I've realized whenever we started a show called The Real Housewives of Kawangware. Kawangware is
Lavington Brown.
Yeah. It's a town in Kenya. You want me to say it's ghetto? No, it's not ghetto. Yeah. So you get the picture. So The Real Houses of Kawangware, when we started it, people talked negatively online, and especially Twitter. I don't know why it's always Twitter, but it's a good, you choose how you want to use it. So they said, these people want to be like Lupita. By then, Lupita had won her Oscar award. They want to be like Lupita Nyong'o. What is this they are doing about house helps? And I'm happy we talked about stories that we've not told. So in our African setting, the house help is always somewhere there, at times with her uniform. We never talk about her stories. But when they meet, because when you go to work, they meet. They have their own conferences as this, and they talk about you. That's where the juice is. So when we did that show, guys went like, no, this is not the Kenya we want. We won't be able to compete with Nigeria. We won't be able to compete with South Africa. So when we started, people people talked that way, and I screenshot those tweets. Then later on, Lupita came and watched our show, and she was like, I wish everyone understood Swahili. So that's why I got my Instagram name, Blessed. I was used to call Fanny Njugush. Now Lupita put a hashtag, God bless Njuguna. And I called myself Blessed Njugush from that point. It was because people would make you...
I used to think you're Blessed Njugush.
No.
Deep story.
No. It's a Lupita kind of thing. So from that I learned one thing. It's very easy to deviate from what you're doing because people are speaking. Because we had a meeting of, can we change this? And now instead of focusing on the house helps, we come inside the house and now we focus on everyone. And that show became a hit. They went off air and then people said, we want it back. Right now it's back, though I'm no longer there. So I don't know if it's still doing okay. So, but on a light note, So my point was, it's always disappointing because these negative comments, the risk will always come when you need the last of them. Like when you are like, this thing is not working. And then, bam, what is he trying to do? I don't know, we've heard these stories, but you're telling a story in a different model. So I think for risk, yes, it comes with the job. It's part of the job. So I think we just swim in it. So if it happens, well and good. And if our politicians are something to go by, whenever you're talked about, and especially in a negative way, you've stolen money. Here, I don't know about you guys where you come from, but in Kenya, you can become a governor, a senator, just be in a scandal somewhere. You've stolen money. Am I talking too much, Kenyans? Oh, visitors, we are corrupt-free. We are corruption-free.
You're mambo ya home, bana.
Oh, I'm sorry. They are saying I should not be able to talk about.
Yeah,
actually, in Kenya, wherever you go is a corruption-free zone. That's what they've written. But it's actually free to do corruption. That's it. I won't.
Esther.
What is the question?
Is it risky for you now?
Yeah.
Baraza Media Lab, is it risky for you now?
Backlash from the audiences who 1 minute they like your South African accent, the next minute they want you to shake the industry.
I knew you'd, but anyway, I'm glad you guys didn't get it. So, when you were talking about now getting into trouble, iyo ya kwanza, of course, I could not relate, but this one, yes. And I remember, like, it is always Twitter. So I had been I had been posting my civic education videos for a while, and then somebody commented, somebody on Twitter commented that I should just steer clear of politics. And I was so confused because why? This is my life. And politics has to do with everyone. And then now it got worse now, closer to elections when, I was just doing civic education, guys. I don't know why people usually think when you're educating people, you lean towards, you've taken a side. So for me, it's just people misunderstanding the content I put out. And for me, I just ignore. Okay, sometimes I clap back. Okay, many times. But a lot of times. Why? And somebody was making fun of me that even if you have 7 followers, Esther Kazungu will respond to you because I have the time. But for me, I even forget, even right now, I know there's a lot of instances where I've gotten into trouble, but I just can't remember because I choose to not make it relevant.
Readers saying...
I must admit that, they are pretty mean fellows, in digital streets. So I remember that I was asked by, a particular panel, and the lady said, how do you deal with trolls and all these mean people? And it occurred to me that actually, most of the time I don't respond, but rarely do I respond. But as I said, I've seen pretty mean comments. Some of them but then I told her that actually I've been dealing, all my life with pretty mean trolls, I mean original trolls, so to speak. And I said, in my days at the Nation, I mean, Catherine will tell you this, is that I received letters where somebody sat down, wrote 3 pages about my cartoon, and went to the post office and posted it and waited for it. And so that's what I've been dealing all my life. It's
called commitment.
Yeah, or somebody would call and lecture you for 20 minutes. So I said, well, what you're dealing with now is pretty okay. You're not doing bad. You're not doing badly. But yeah, I mean, it has always been like that with satire. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, you have to be prepared to deal with that. You're going to have a pretty mean fellow out there who actually, especially now with social media, they will, I mean, they've insulted me, my kids, my wife, my mother. I mean, so you have to, one of the things you have to do if you want to continue creating content is just to put that aside and keep going. But I think I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.
We can take questions, but as Director June is coming, I just have a question. I don't create memes. I use people's images. Am I soon going to get into trouble for using Honorable Mdavadi's photo of him singing, and I put my own words down there?
Yes.
Oh, that's...
You want a short answer?
No, I want a
yes, you'll get into trouble. I'll explain more, but let's take the questions and we'll discuss. Yeah. Your name and your question, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Drew. I'm a Kenyan actor, comedian, filmmaker, and a creative. Sitaki kusema mimi ni content creator. I have questions and concerns. First is concern. I feel like the content creation industry has been corrupted. Starting from the content creators, all the way to the marketing agencies, to the brands and stuff. Because if you check currently what has been rewarded, wale wasi wanapewa hizi brands zote ni mtu anafanya English, pole, sorry. Let me come again. My name is Drew. Can I do an accent? Okay. Oh, foreigners understand, okay. So, my name is Andrew. Call me Drew, an actor, comedian, creative. I'm Kenyan. So I have a concern based on the Kenyan demographic of how the content creation is moving. I feel like it has come a point where everything has been corrupted in terms of the people who are doing the real art has been suppressed. People are putting more attention and focus on cloud chasers, people doing other things that have no or zero impact with the community, because I believe art is meant to entertain, yes, and educate. So my question is rather to Gado, like you have this experience, you fought the regime for decades and you're still here strong. Regime. You should, sorry? Oh, okay. Or regimes, oh yeah. You should first teach us, do a masterclass on growing thick skin in this entertainment industry. So my question is, what's the future? What can we do to change this whole scope that honestly is headed in the wrong direction? How can we reward the actual people who are doing the actual art for the sake of the people? And also to commend Jugush first for pioneering such a dope industry. Congratulations, boss. Respect. And also for the projects you've done and arts you've created to showcase people about bad governance and all these things. So my question is, how are we going to sanitize this? How are we going to ensure that the kids that are watching us, the audience that are watching us, we are giving them the right things to feed their mind? Because the future is entirely dependent on the content we are creating now. The likes of Jugush, us guys, and Churchill, we were standing from a farm foundation that was brought by the ridiculous trio. You know, now there's you and Jugush, and now the team, Mr. Kazungu, and us. What are we going to pass over to the next generation so that we ensure some of these values and principles have been passed on? So that's one. Sorry, one last one. Yep. Okay. Question is, how can we attain our freedom as creatives? because as soon as you sign a deal with a corporate, it's over, you're silenced. How can we maintain our true speech? How can we own our own stories and narratives despite the status quo, the people who pay us? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. I'm sure it does. Yusuf, would you like to address those 3 questions first, and then we'll come take a few others? Yeah, I think I had seen your hand. Go ahead. Your name and a brief question, please.
Bridge Mwangi is my name. So we know that satire plays a role in, people take refuge in satire to avoid demanding social change in the government. And so we also know that satire makes politicians uncomfortable, but at the same time, how are you able to measure the social change that is happening? And then secondly, I think has been addressed, what is the future of satire? Are you looking into creating a structure around it that will be able to sustain the future who are going to be using the same satire?
All right. Let me sample this side of the room, then I come back. Let me go this side. Your name and your question.
Thank you, June. My name is Jerry Wangare. My question is somehow related to the gentleman at the back, but mine is on the flip side of comic relief and how it has become a tool and a strategy employed by the government. Okay, I will speak about the Kenyan government. I'm not sure about others, but what I have seen with the Kenyan government, it has been used as a tool and even a strategy as a cover-up for real issues. And we've seen this diversionary tactic used a lot on Twitter, a platform where you see trending things happening and then suddenly there are certain memes that are trending, and that sort of covers a very pertinent issue that is happening in society, which is what people should be engaging with, but then up comes Githeri Man and suddenly everyone forgets. Then my second question is, now with this spaces quickly shrinking, how, as content creators, how can we start thinking of creating new spaces in a world where these spaces where satire is used for critical thinking are quickly shrinking? Thank you.
Director Paul, please address those ones first. I'm concerned about time.
Thank you very much, Director June.
And then we'll come and take one last one there, but please begin with those ones.
The first one was US guide about the corrupted content space. How do we push back? That was your question, Drew, yeah?
Well, they always say that, you get the leaders you deserve. Yes, we are a very corrupt society. And at the end of the day, we have to defend what is right. Now, just before I get to that, I also have to admit, I've always gotten a lot of praises, but I also have to repeat that, I worked for a powerful organization, the Nation Media and the Standard, and I have a couple of cases, but it is also because we had a very good structure. My editors defended me. I've been taken to court. Before you sue an editorial cartoonist, you have to sue the newspaper. So that was much better than individual artists. And then Juguna and Esther here probably are much braver than me by far. So that is also the background that I come with. That I was lucky enough to work in platforms that were always able to give me the platform, but also to defend what I was doing. So that over the years has grown, and I've been a beneficiary of that. Now, going forward, we have to defend the gains that Kenya has gained. There is no other way about that. And that will be upon the younger generation to defend it. The content, it is easy today to look at what is being produced, but also, that came, at the backdrop of, of actually the fights that others put. So that is important. Satire will be here long after myself, Paul, Njugush, after we are all gone. It has always been there, and it will always be the tool that will speak truth to power. The important thing is to protect it. Is to understand and appreciate its role, and that is upon. It's a bigger and wider question, and it should involve, it cuts across the society. That what are we doing, for example, for content creators to start with that in our schools. I mean, we make noise about corruptions, but this is a country where parents basically go to steal exams so that their kids can pass exams. So what ethics are we impacting to our kids? We are so caught up into me first, situation that we are willing to do anything to be fast. So we have to look at it broadly as a society. I think the creative sector, you are right, it's not any different from other sectors. There is corruption there. There is all manners of things that are happening, and so we should not isolate to look like no. You have to look at across the board, and I think lastly, yes, about the. Yeah, and that corruption also we have to look at it. It's not, we tend to look at only politicians. I mean, the corporate Kenya is probably more corrupt than our politicians. So you also have to accept the hard truth about what we are facing. It's a societal problem, and that is actually a challenge. It's a challenge to creatives and everybody. Now, there is a question that I always struggle with. About we have artists. They are artists. They are satirists. But they also have entertainers. Who would be, called to a rally, and I sometimes I find difficult to attack them because they are just entertainers. So Azimio would call them. They will go and perform, and then Kenya Kwanza would call them, and they don't see their role, and their role is just to entertain. The challenge you have artists and satirists who now, operate, in that area. So there's a lot of confusion also. And so I personally I like to call myself an arms chair expert. So I normally sit in my office and do what I want to do and work with artists. So I think I have a little bit of room. It's a little bit difficult. I don't attend these rallies. And I don't, my role is a bit different. But we also have to understand, and I think that the challenge is Kenyan politicians are very smart, and they work 24/7, and they will try to get you.
They work.
They do work. Oh. It is you who think, you think they don't work, but they work, and they know, Njugush, and they are very subtle. They are very nice. And Njugush, why don't you come to our rally? Kidogo tu uongee na watu. And slowly you find yourself you are part and parcel of the, and I quite honestly have sympathy to I always give this joke, to my colleagues who have to interview these guys. I don't do that, but journalists and practitioners who go to meet their offices, I've always wondered, well, if I go to a place where they give, let's say I'm going to a minister's office and he says, after the interview he has a briefcase full of money. Well, I might take it. I have issues. I have things to do. I have school fees. So I'm always also a bit careful because it's a very difficult environment that journalists and media practitioners operate. So I tend to avoid that. So I don't do that because I don't go to it. But there are people who have to interview these people. So what do you do? And there's a briefcase full of money. So we have to look at it broadly. It's a challenging, and I don't have necessarily answers to that, but it's a bigger societal problem.
And Njugush, both Drew's and Jerry's question on passing it on to the next generation, and I think technically sustainability, maybe. Can you answer both?
I've heard there's a briefcase full of money, and I'm thinking of my problems. About passing it on to the next generation, and he attached that to the kind of content we have. Right now, if you log in, like for example, I cannot comfortably log in. I was talking about my browser history, but that's not bad as compared to what I have on my timeline. Wherever you log into Instagram, TikTok, I cannot comfortably do it in front of my elders. And it's because the kind of thing Instagram, TikTok, all these pages, Facebook Reels are pushing, they are ungodly videos. You see something your mother told you never to. You get where I'm coming from. So you see all these, they're beautiful ladies, but you see some, they're calling it comedy, but it's comedy recorded from behind. You wonder what kind of comedy this is. And that's what we are being fed. That's what we are being fed. However, it's encouraging, and I'm happy we are having these discussions. It's encouraging when we're talking about telling stories that have not been told. The same Instagram, you'll find somewhere in a pocket of 2 ungodly videos, you'll have a travel video. Someone went to Malawi, something you never thought. There's another video I loved about Africa. This is Africa, this is Africa, this is also Africa. So they are showing different faces of Africa. You're in a beach, at the same time you go to Masai Mara, it's different. You go to Kawangware, this is Africa, and it's beautiful content. So that means if we invested more on some beautiful content, we also have a Kenyan YouTuber called Lynn Ngugi. Lynn Ngugi have done something really beautiful. She tells human interest stories. At first she was under a media house, then she broke out, and now she's alone, and she does stories about people who are not known. You know, it's very easy to be able to call Gado and to say we have a sit down with Gado. That interview is going to trend. I have a sit down with Esther, it's going to trend. But doing a human interview of someone who is in Kapenguria, someone who is not known, but they have this and this problem, or they have solved this and this problem, she's having a lot of views on her YouTube channel. So that means it's possible to be able to be positive, but the other corrupted content is very easy to achieve. Yeah, you just need a bathroom and a camera, and then you're good to go. It's very easy, but my point is always, it's going to be around for a short while, until you get someone with a bigger bathroom and a better camera. But if I'm alone with some pure content, I have a bad camera, you're going to watch that content because there's something I'm saying. So, and this is all you have. So that's what I'm saying. I'm happy we are here, we are talking about that. So that will transform into the next generation, because what happens is we've seen people who are doing the corrupted kind of content. So we have newer people, and we'll still have new people. But we have the same Gado who's been there 1992. I was 1 year old. Who is today, you cannot tell him anything in terms of satire. He's the GOAT. So that means something good will last, and it's very sustainable. So I think to answer that question.
All right. Last question, Esther, how do you measure impact? I think you asked how we measure impact.
Well, that's very difficult, because as Njugush said, tuta vote online. And then when we get to the polls and like the actual polls, like things are so different. It's very difficult to measure impact, but at least the impact that for me has been very important is being therapy for people, because people usually come like to DM me and tell me that they were going through a very difficult time, and like my videos made them laugh. Okay, I never thought I'd do that, like, cause I just thought that's other people. I never thought my content would do that, but that's the impact I can measure really. And of course, kuna watu wengine wenye hawajakuja. It's very difficult to measure impact online, because now, unless I now start doing polls, okay guys, so will you change your habits? Are you gonna vote wisely? So what did you get from this video? Explain to me, 50 marks, you know, I don't think it's easy. I don't know if, you can take it up.
I was, you are spot on that one. I always, get confronted by that question. Impact is very difficult, and I think it's also important that you say that we forgot the role of satire as therapy. It's very important, and I think that is always forgotten. But there is a question that we shouldn't forget, is that just to point out that when we say that the politicians are very smart, I mean, you need to look at the previous elections. You see that from both sides you had people who employed a battery of online, activists who were, throwing in fake news and propaganda and all that. So, we are living in an era whereby you also have to fight this. You have to, how do we fight this weather? In a situation where you have, political leaders actively pushing propaganda and fake news and misinformation and disinformation. And that's apparently that also we are all sucked in there. Artists, satirists are all there because there is a lot of money at that time. People have actually they've been sucked in, and they're part and parcel of this. So it's what the question raises quite a lot, huge questions about, what's the future of all this, where we're going. And I think we might not answer, but I think it's important that we take note of that and actually, take concrete step to fight that.
All right, we'll take one last question.
Yes, and then we'll wrap up.
I have a question. I am really concerned about content creating for persons in the minority group. For example, I am deaf. And we use sign language, which many people in Africa do not know. So, for example, right here, how many people know sign language, if I could ask? But if we make good content, how would we be guaranteed that we'll get attraction and the viewership from people who do not understand sign language? And also, how do we improve ourselves? How do we get viewership because we use sign language? I don't know if you got the question.
You have a similar question.
Hi everyone,
Hi,
my name
Farah.
is Farah Khaled. I am also a digital creator and the founder of the Farah Foundation. I also have a similar question to that. I want to know how I can use the Comedic Effect to target people living with rare diseases and different disabled people. Because my foundation, one of our objectives is to voice stories of people living with rare diseases. So I want to make it a fun thing, not so serious or share, So yeah, if you can just.
Okay, you got
Good
that?
questions, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
So, Jugush, you want to start?
All right. So Deaf Media Studios, amazing. So, and this is what I'm talking about. We focus so much on the noise that is passing, in the sense that the easy content to make, while we have a lot of stories that we've not told. So in that regard, in terms of inclusivity, I'd love to see how that would work, because as Gado said, it comes from the society. Because yesterday there was someone who was seated there, and she talked about the inclusivity that we don't see until, like for example, a question has been asked. Like for example, when you come here, did you look at entrances where you could use a wheelchair? Maybe you didn't, maybe you did. So when we start doing that as a society, and including everyone, it's going to be easy. And that's a very great challenge of how we can be able to do our own content, to be able to support that, and also to be able to we are talking about collaborations. So that's a very good ground to be able to collaborate, because for us to bridge and to be able to show that, we have to collaborate, so that people from that side, or rather where I am, can be able to see we have been neglecting these particular brothers and sisters, and we need to include them. So that will lead to, nowadays people are learning things on YouTube. The other day I found someone who is learning Russian. I don't know why. They are learning Russian. I don't know in module what. So if you can be able to do that online, I think on YouTube, now there are people who are teaching or who be able to teach sign language, so to speak. So that's a first. If we can be able to start from education, from things like this. Like yesterday we didn't have Madame there, but today she's there because there was need. So if make it a thing, and I'm so happy about our media houses. They have made it a thing. We have an anchor, and they are being helped by a sign language anchor, which is a very good thing. So I think we are heading there. We are not there yet, but if you look at our traditional media, it's something really beautiful they are doing with the sign language. So I think it's for us, but the rest of us, to take a cue for the content creators. That's a place that has not been explored, and also for purposes of collaboration. The next question, how you can be able to make it fun. I think it's to identify a position. As you said, you don't want the OSHA. Wherever you're comfortable, identify a situation where it places you. Like, for example, I was speaking with a good friend called Deno. Deno is visually impaired. He's a musician. So when you're talking, he says, "I see you, man." So at first, I'm like, I don't know how to react to that, but it's like, "I got you." That's a good joke. So from that point, you're now able to understand him and to be like, "By the way, how do you go about ABCD?" So we can be able to talk about ABCD. So I think it's from the point where you get a lot of questions, or point where you feel people are always thinking. Like the way you said, like you feel like, you know, like they want to, you know, that's a very good point to start from. You know, where you attack the elephant in the room. So I find that is a good, it's kind of you're creating a rapport with the person. Yeah, now we can talk about this. Because all the other time we are talking about everything else, and not really what we need to be talking about. Yeah, so I think, I don't know if I've helped, but just find a sweet spot and you own the discussion. Because if you let people own the discussion, it can go to a different tangent. So when you own the discussion, you're like, "This is my space." And we've seen such TikToks of guys who give talks in front of people, and they break ice with the elephant in the room. And then from there, it's all south. You can be able to ask. Because there are questions we are willing to ask, but I don't know how to ask. I don't know if I'm going to be insensitive. I don't know how to ask. But when you come from a point of bring it on, I'll be like, and it's a great conversation.
All right, thank you so much. Any parting shots and where we can find you?
I think I want to add to that. The gentleman's name, please.
Samuel Buri Morethi. His YouTube channel name is Deaf Media Kenya.
Okay. So thank you, Samuel. I mean, I would want to, you know, I'm very proud of your question, because as a content creator at Buni Media, we actually, we have done, last year we did a show TMI, we included a sign language. With XYZ, we created, I think we started having a sign language. We are creating shows with children's shows that we are creating now. We are incorporating an element of sign language. So, yes, as a creator, yes, that's something that as an organization we have actually taken note, and I think that goes also to other marginalized communities. I mean, we try to work with them, but it's important to note that, I mean, we have to be deliberate when it comes to that. It's not something, it's not easy, but also we have to be deliberate. I think a lot of organizations are not, and it's by the way. But you have, as a content producers, when we talked about collaborations, that's exactly what you need to do. So I'm glad that you raised that question.
All right. So next year, please, the organizers, can you just give us a whole day on this comic topic? Because clearly, June is here to move us out physically. Please, where can we find your content? Jugush.ke or .co? They took you.
Boone, you took my microphone.
Yeah, I did.
I think for me, where you can find me, on YouTube, I just want us to follow Deaf Media Studios.
All right.
Deaf Media Studios On YouTube.
Oh.
Deaf Media
Deaf
Kenya?
Media Kenya.
Deaf Media Kenya. Oh, I've seen 2 of them. Deaf Media Kenya.
Where's your work?
Jugush, you're making assumptions that everyone knows where your work is.
Yeah, collectively, Buni Media, you'll find plenty of content, and I think we welcome, what's important is that we welcome lots of young people who create content. We have a studio that we invite. If you want to produce something, the studio is open, and you only need to contact us, and we are more than happy to work with content creators.
So Njugush's handles are Blessed Njugush KE.
Blessed Njugush.
Soon to be Africa, soon to be Blessed Njugush Earth. You can find me on Esther Kazungu on all platforms except YouTube. That ship sailed. And yes, thanks for your support, guys. I see y'all.
All right, a hand of applause for this amazing people right here.
And you, Paul, where can we find your content?
You can find me out here. My content?
Yes.
Instagram. Okay, what Instagram? At Paushinsky everywhere on social media.
P-A-U
At
Shinsky.
Paushinsky everywhere on social media.
All right. And
I see you on Jiro. Thank you.
And just a clarification, it is actually, you are right, Njugush, it's Deaf Media Studios. You are right. Okay. A round of applause for this amazing panel. Thank you so much.